Mr. President, you use chemical weapons and barrel bombs in Syria against your own population. These are UN reports. You can't ignore it.
You're talking about two different issues. The chemical issue, it was proven to be false, and they haven't a shred of evidence about the Syrian army using chemical weapons, particularly before we give up our arsenal in 2013. Now we don't have it anyway. Before that, it was fiction, because if you want to use such mass destruction armament, you're going to kill thousands of people on one incident, and we didn't have such an incident. Besides that, we wouldn't use it because you're going to kill your own people, and that's against your interests. So this is a false allegation. We don't have to waste our time with it. You live in Syria. There's traditional war, but there's nothing related to mass destruction armament.
But the UN report is not a fiction.
The UN report never has been credible, never. And because they put reports based on allegations, based on other reports, on false report, and they say this is a report. Did they send a delegation to make investigation? They sent one in 2013, and it couldn't prove at all that the Syrian army used chemical weapons. This is first. The second, which is more important, the first incident happened at the beginning of 2013 in Aleppo, when we said that the terrorists used chemical weapons against our army, and we invited the United Nations to send delegation. We did. And that time, the United States opposed that delegation because they already knew that this investigation, of course, if it's impartial, is going to prove that those terrorists, their proxies, used chemical armaments against the Syrian army. Regarding the barrel bomb, I want to ask you what the definition of barrel bomb. If you go to our army, you don't have in our record something called barrel bomb. So how do you understand, and just want to know how I can answer you, what a barrel bomb is? We have bombs.
It's the destruction, and it's against humanitarian law.
Every bomb can make destruction, every bomb. So you don't have bomb to make nothing. So this is a word that's been used in the West as part of the Western narrative in order to show that there's indiscriminate bomb that's been killing civilians indiscriminately, and that oppose the Western narrative. I'll show you the contradiction. In other areas, they say that we are bombarding intentionally the hospital, and you mentioned that. And we are targeting intentionally the schools, and we targeted intentionally the convoys to Aleppo last month. Those targets need high precision missiles. So they have to choose which part of the narrative. We either have indiscriminate bombs, or we have high precision bomb. They keep contradicting in the same narrative. This is the Western reality now. So which one to choose, I can answer you. But again, we don't have any indiscriminate bomb. If we kill people indiscriminately, it means we are losing the war, because people will be against us. I cannot kill the Syrian people, either morally or for my interest, because in that case, I'm going to push the Syrian community and society toward the terrorists, not vice versa.
Let's talk about the policy of France.
Exactly, the policy of France that started from day one to support the terrorists in Syria and is responsible directly of the killings in our country. And
how can you say it? It's a serious accusation against France. How can you say that France is support terrorism?
They said, I didn't agree with them. They said many times they supported the war, and Holland recently said it was a mistake not to launch war in 2013. They said that they sent armaments to what they call them moderate groups, which are terrorists. They said that, I didn't say. The Americans said the same, the French said the same. So your officials go back to their statements during the last 2, 3, 4 years maybe. You have more than one self-accusation by the French official.
Do you think the European Union or even NATO can play a role in rebuilding the country, like rebuilding Syria?
You cannot play that role while you are destroying Syria, because the EU is supporting the terrorists in Syria from the very beginning under different titles, humanitarians, moderate, and so on. Actually, they were supporting al-Nusra and ISIS from the very beginning. They were extremists from the very beginning. So they cannot destroy and build at the same time. First of all, they have to take a very clear position regarding the sovereignty of Syria, stopping supporting the terrorists. This is where the Syrian would or say would accept those countries to play a role in that regard. But in the meantime, if you ask any Syrian about the same question, they will tell you, no, we don't accept. Those countries supported the people who destroyed our country. We don't want them to be here. That's what I think.
Do you think Belgium can play a role in Syria?
Let me talk about the European political position in general. Many in this region believe that the Europeans don't exist politically. They only follow the master, which is the American. So the question should be about the American, and European will follow and will implement what the American wants. They don't exist as independent states, and Belgium is part of the EU. The other question, how can a government morally kill its own people? And if we kill our own people, the civilians, how can we withstand 6 years as a government or as army or as president? This is not logical. This is not realistic. We are here because we have the public support. But at the end, as I said, there's always casualty, and we hope that we can really end this war as soon as possible. This is the only way that we can save Syrian bloods through.
I would like to mention the subject of torture prisons, Mr. President. Amnesty speaks of 17,000 dead. Regarding the prison of Sadnaya, there are still horrible reports. When will you allow an independent observer into that prison?
Yeah, independent. And Amnesty International is not independent. And it's not impartial.
ICRC?
We did discuss it with the Red Cross. We didn't discuss it. It should be discussed in our institution. If we want to allow, if there's allegation, we could be discussed. We don't say yes or no. But the report that you have mentioned, it was a report made by Qatar and financed by Qatar. You don't know the source. You don't know the names of those victims. Nothing verified about that report. It was paid by Qatar directly in order to vilify and smear the Syrian government and the Syrian army.
There are a lot of eyewitnesses.
No one knows who are they. You don't have anything clear about that. It's not verified. So no. You've seen the first attack a few years ago that happened in Aleppo by the terrorists against our army. We asked the United Nations to send investigation delegation in order to prove what we said about the terrorists having gases used against our army. And later, many incidents happened in that way, and they didn't send any delegation. The same now. We formally sent a letter to the United Nations for them. We asked them in that letter to send a delegation in order to investigate what happened in Khan Sheikhoun. Of course, till that moment, they didn't send because the West and the United States blocked any delegation from coming, because if they come, they will find that all their narrative about what happened in Khan Sheikhoun and then the attack on Shuairat airport was false flag, was a lie. That's why they didn't send. Now the only contact I think is between Russia and maybe the other country in order to send that delegation. Till this moment, we didn't have any positive news regarding any delegation coming.
What is your view of what happened there?
Because at 6:30 in the morning, we didn't launch any attack at that time. So you have two possibilities. The first one, that there was an attack at lunchtime or at about 11:30. The other possibility that we believe in, that it was false flag, there was no attack. All what we saw as pictures and videos was like the video that we've been seeing for the last year or 2 years or more regarding the white helmets, the humanitarian Al-Qaeda, which is elusive story, let's say, which doesn't exist anyway. And the picture that shows children being killed by Russian airstrike, to discover later that it wasn't real picture. They put a boy, they covered him with the mud and blood, the fake blood, of course, yes, and so on. All this ploy could be part of them. This could be part of them. That's what we believe in, because the attack was already prepared. And they didn't want to listen. They didn't want to investigate. They only wanted to launch the attack. We believe it was false flag for one reason, and simple reason. If there was gas leakage or attack, and you're talking about 60 dead in that city, how could the city continue its life normally? They didn't evacuate the city. No one left the city. Life continued as normal. And this is mass destruction. The other day they attacked Shuwairat, where they said there was the gas depots, and they attacked all the depots, and there was no gas coming out of that airport. No one of our army officers or staff, military staff, was affected by any gas. So for us, there was no gas attack and no gas depot. It was false flag play just to justify the attack on the Shuwairat base. That's what happened.
The main version is that no chemical weapons or no chemicals were used there.
No, I mean, even if you look at the pictures, you can see that the rescuers, the presumable rescuers, were rescuing people without masks, without gloves, and they were moving freely.
Yes.
How this is against all the specifications of the sarin gas that they talked about. They cannot. They would have been dead like the others. And you don't know that those people who are lying on the ground were dead or not. You can fake this image. You can very easy. So you cannot just base your judgment on images and videos, especially made by Al-Qaeda.
The Belgian government is contributing in the fight against Daesh. There are 6 F-16 fighter planes in the fight against Daesh. Are you grateful to the Belgian government for that contribution?
Let me be frank with you. When you talk about contribution in the operation against ISIS, actually there was no operation against ISIS. It was cosmetic operation. If you want to talk about the American alliance against ISIS, it was only elusive alliance because ISIS was expanding during that operation. At the same time, that operation is illegal operation because it happened without consulting with or taking the permission of the Syrian government, which is a legitimate government, and it's a breaching of our sovereignty. Third, they didn't prevent any Syrian citizen from being killed by ISIS. So what are we grateful for? To be frank, no.
The response Trump promised was going to be extreme and severe, according to his words early on. The response that we saw, the strike that we saw after the latest alleged chemical attack, it seemed to be much more symbolic, much smaller in scope, and there was inexplicably, again, a delay when Trump promised the attack and when it came. Why was there a delay? Did it have something perhaps to do with the Russians?
It has two aspects as we saw it. The first one, they told a story, they told a lie, and the public opinion around the world and in the West didn't buy their story, but they couldn't withdraw. So they had to do something, even on smaller scale. The second issue related to the Russian position that time, as you know, that the Russians announced publicly that they're going to destroy the bases that's going to be used to launch missiles. And our information, we don't have evidence, we only have information, and those informations are credible informations, that they were thinking about comprehensive attack all over Syria. And that's why the threat pushed the West to make it on much smaller scale.
One of the first contested decisions of Donald Trump is the Muslim ban. It's intended to forbid citizens from some Muslim countries, including Syria, to travel to US. Yeah. As a citizen Syrian, as the president of Syria, do you feel some humiliation there?
No, because it's not against the Syrian people, first of all. It's against the terrorists that could infiltrate some of the immigrants to the West, and that happened in Europe, mainly in Germany, and it could happen in the United States. So I think the aim of Trump is to prevent those people from coming. So he took it this way. Second,
so he's in the right way when he...
No, I'm talking about
When you say
it's
one
something
Muslim ban?
we can disagree and we can agree as person, but for me as president, I wouldn't worry about that. I'm worried about how can I bring the Syrian people to Syria, not send them to the United States. I wouldn't feel happy if they could access to other countries. I would feel happy when they can come back to Syria because they want to come back to Syria. The majority of Syrians, because of the terrorism and the embargo, the Western embargo. So if I want to deal with that decision, I would ask Trump and the Western country to lift the embargo and to stop supporting the terrorists. They wouldn't have problem with this. They won't have immigrants or terrorists infiltrating the immigrants. Second, this is another important point. All the fuss that we heard about Trump's decision, not because they are worried about the Syrian or about the other countries, because they want to use our cause, our problem, our conflicts as the fuel for the conflict with Trump. Because you have other decision that had been taken by Obama a few months ago regarding the same issue. The mainstream media in the United States didn't talk about it, only talked about Trump when he announced it publicly and took it in a stark way. We have to be cautious with every Western leader because they can say something and do the opposite, and they can say something, do something in the morning and do the opposite in the evening. They wouldn't commit to anything. They are very pragmatic till they sell their values. They don't have values in their policies.
Mr. President, as you're fully aware that the White Helmet took an Oscar this year for the best documentary short. Yeah. But folks are saying that the truth about this White Helmet is not like what Netflix has presented. So what is your take on this?
First of all, we have to congratulate Al-Nusra for having the first Oscar. This is a precedented event for the West to give Al-Qaeda an Oscar. Wow. This is unbelievable. And this is another proof that Oscars, Nobel, all the things are politicized certificate. That's how I can look at it. The White Helmet story is very simple. It's a facelift of Al-Nusra Front in Syria, just to change their ugly face into more humanitarian face. That's it. And you have many videos on the net, and of course, image broadcasted by the White Helmet that condemn the White Helmet as a terrorist groups, where you can see the same person wearing the White Helmet and celebrating the dead body of Syrian soldiers. So that's what the Oscar went to those terrorists. So it's a story just to try to prevent the Syrian army during the liberation of Aleppo from more making pressure on the attacking and liberating the districts within the city that's been occupied by those terrorists, to say that the Syrian army and the Russians are attacking the civilians and the innocents and the humanitarian people.
Mr. President, there's a lot of narrative about the Western media perceptions about you, personally speaking. Now, we've seen the humanitarian issue or angle from the pictures and videos of children who have been sufferers of this conflict. We saw the case of Alan Kurdi, who was washed ashore dead in Turkey. Umran Daknish, the boy who was sitting in an ambulance. Even Bana Alabeth, whose tweets went viral. Don't you sometimes think that this thing has gone on for far too long? It's gone too far, and maybe everybody, and I mean everybody, should step back from the brink?
The West, you mean mainly the Western? No, they cannot, because if they do any U-turn or any turn, their public opinion will tell them you are lying. You've been talking about this bad person and this bad government and the killing for 7 years. Now you want to tell us the truth. They cannot tell the truth. So they have to continue till the end with their lies, till these lies will be debunked by their public opinion. They cannot.
A second round of negotiation is starting now in Astana, in Kazakhstan. And it's very striking. The Western countries are totally out of the game. They're out of the picture. Yeah. Is this really good for the future of the negotiations and the future of peace?
No, the more support you have of any political process, the better. But the Western countries that's been involved in those processes, mainly France and UK, they lost the chance of achieving anything in Geneva twice. 2 rounds in Geneva, and they couldn't achieve anything because they supported those groups that represented the terrorists against the government. They didn't want to achieve a peace in Syria. They wanted to achieve their goals through the peace acts of the whole process.
But the fact that the destiny of the Middle East is supervised right now by two countries, Iran and Russia, that, by the way, don't have a fantastic democratic record of their own, is that a good thing?
Again, the more involvement you have around the world, the better. And that not only our vision, that even the Russian vision. And the Russians invited many countries to come and help them fighting terrorism and supporting this political process. But the Western countries isolated themselves, not Iran, not Russia. They were very passive in dealing with all these initiatives, like Astana. Where are they? Did the Russians tell them not to come? No, they didn't. They didn't come.
So Iran and Russia are promoters of peace and the Western countries of war.
Exactly, 100%. We said that what this president, Trump, what he said, we said promising. I describe it as promising a few months ago. But actually, it's not about what they promise, because we all know that the American officials say something and do something different. They never committed to their promises or to their words. So that's what has been proven recently after the attack on Shairat. They say something and they do something different. Because the United Nations was created in order to restore stability around the world. Actually, the Western countries, especially the permanent members of the Security Council, they are trying to use the United Nations and the Security Council as a tool or mean in order to change regimes or government, to implement their agenda, not to restore stability, actually to create more instability around the world.